it's black belt season. Lots of students have or are about to go for black belt, and I felt this might be an interesting observation to share. The training up to black belt is obviously very physical. So maybe the year from red to black, deepening into knowledge and skills. So not really so much more syllabus, not lots of patterns to learn, but really consolidating the knowledge, sharpening everything, making sure that the syllabus so far is in there, and the muscle memory as well as knowledge is in there. And then the training up to black belt, a lot of internal hurdles come up, the fear, doubt of self, doubting, can I remember it, can I perform it, can I handle the nerves, will I pass, will I be good enough, will I, whatever it is, maybe the area that isn't as favoured by you, is that going to be good enough? So there's a lot of physical training, physical exercise. There's a lot of focus on the theory, because often that is an area that maybe feels harder to remember. The weekly practices, your training sessions, a lot of physical, and I as an instructor definitely will say moves in Korean, but because the student is focused on the physical and the stance and whatever's going on in their head, it doesn't always sink in. So it does take the diligence of the student to look at the theory sheets and hopefully coming up the grades, taking that theory on each time. And that point towards black belt, the physical training, making sure the theory is in there, the ability to answer any questions that will be asked regarding the theory. And then the internal aspect of overcoming the fear, the doubt, not listening to the wobbles, taking the next step. And then the day arrives, and interesting, that we don't necessarily, I think at that point, appreciate that we'll never get to be a black stripe again, hopefully. And that the journey to this point has really shifted something deep. Nobody, when they go for their black belt, is their white belt self. There is something unique about the Taekwondo journey and the training and the hurdles for different grades and whatever it is, the inner strength or the becoming more resilient, becoming more courageous, having, kind of more humble. So all that has been happening. So the white belt to the black belt, the person wearing the belt, nothing to do with the colour of the belt that's changed, not just the colour of the belt that's changed, but the person, because of the moving through, the ability to keep going even when it felt challenging, the ability to, maybe support yourself or support each other. I mean, the brilliant thing about Taekwondo is the camaraderie and the encouragement, wanting to see each other succeed and do well all through the journey. And then so get to black belt, you have the grading and the anticipation for receiving your results regardless of how you thought you did. And then you get your results, And there is elation, elation because an internal aspect is recognizing what it's taken. There is recognition of what it's taken and reflection on that journey. From white belt to now black belt, the undergoing, the joys, the highs, the lows, the intensity, the passion for it. And so the elation is there, which, is brilliant. However, what does come then is the deflation. So there's elation and deflation. And from observing, students and my own journey, the ability to just move with that, to recognise that some of that deflation is the intense training, the training up, the physical maybe need for rest, need to just come down, to just like take a breather. But also there is within the psychology that as a black stripe, you were top dog of the colour belt world. As a black stripe, you knew your stuff, you got the syllabus, everything was, hopefully on point. By the time you went for your black belt grading, you trained really hard, and within the colour belt field, you were at the top. And then when you get your black belt, you're not the top anymore. There's a feeling of being at the bottom and of not knowing anything. There's a realization that, you've achieved this black belt, but another part, and I definitely remember feeling like a white belt in a sea of black belts. Definitely remember feeling, going into class, having received the black belt and feeling, I don't know anything. I don't really know anything. And I know the moves, I know the patterns. I don't really feel like I know anything. And I think sometimes maybe not even feeling, like maybe there's an idea of what it feels to be a black belt, and then not feeling like you thought it would feel to be a black belt. And so I guess for some students, the goal is always just the black belt. And I do think that's a shame really, but it is what it is. For some people, tick it off my list. I want to get to black belt. I'm not really bothered about going any further, but that's my end goal, to get to black belt. And then for others, they want to go past black belt, but it takes some reserves, the elation, deflation, and then some reserves to just move through that little bump, that little hurdle from being a brilliant black stripe to a fresh, brand new black belt, and recognizing that there's more things to learn, that you're not there yet. And actually, as a black belt, those gold stripes, for the degrees, there's a lot of years, the separation between a black belt and say a third degree. There's a lot of practice going in there. So, a realization of that, and understanding and awareness. So that little bump to get through, that little bit where the body is feeling maybe like it needs a bit of rest because it's been worked hard. And then also recognizing that you're now, part of the white belts in the sea of black belts. And there's a little bit of a transition to be made. And so not feeling deflated and staying deflated, just recognizing that this is, like when you read a really good book and then you don't want it to come to an end. You almost realise you want to get to the end of the book because you want to know what the book's about, but then there's almost like a disappointment that you've got to the end of the book, and maybe there's a new one you know, that follows on from that book, and you know, ready to start the new one. But it's, I think the surpassing of that feeling just is maybe something to be aware that, you know, this, how you thought you might feel as a black belt and how you do feel might be different. And then just moving through that little initial phase of, you know, being at the top of your game and then feeling like you don't know so much, or that keeping going. And I guess it's different for everybody because we're all different, but it is something that I've observed and something that I felt to share, so that just getting through that little bit, not giving up at that point, or deciding, you know, I don't like the feeling, you know, the willingness to feel uncomfortable. I don't like how it feels, because it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. We're always growing within Taekwondo, and that is absolutely a passion behind teaching, because it's not just the physical skills. It's not just the kicking and punching. It's a whole evolution of self. It's a whole emerging of self. You know, the shy white belt, or maybe the white belt that just thinks they know it all, the humbling. So, you know, for students that come in, sometimes they need encouraging and confidence, and sometimes a little bit of leveling out, maybe aggression and attack, and, you know, so it finds its middle ground. So wherever you start, you find this balance, the balance and expansion of self through the training, you know, absolutely feeling more physically fit for a start, but also feeling more confident, and, you know, just strengthen the base chakra, which is to do with feeling safe and secure. So definitely, as we progress in Taekwondo and we have that ability to manage adrenaline, you know, obviously sometimes things come out of nowhere and that's tricky, and also the ability to manage conflict, to have an awareness that we have a skill set, and, you know, where the part that plays in terms of how we feel within, you know, how much that just gives us a little bit more stability, and I think courage in life. I think the more we feel safe and secure within, nothing to do with about being able to defend ourselves from an attacker always, but just there is a feeling of being more safe and secure. So I hope this helps. So for all the new black belts out there, you know, just be aware that you might feel deflated, and, you know, that part of that is because you've worked really hard, you've trained really hard, you've recognized your progress, you've recognized, you know, that you've got to the top of the mountain, and now you stood at the bottom of another one. And so is life, but worth another climb. Okay.